So the Phoenix Suns traded away Eric Bledsoe to Milwaukee Bucks for a first-round draft pick and also Greg Monroe. Can we just go on the record real quick here and say how big of an idiot the general manager of the Phoenix Suns really is? Because not only did he kill the trade value of Eric Bledsoe, but at the same time, now that he has Greg Monroe, he is saying we are either going to buy out his contract or we are going to trade him away. What team is going to give up any sort of assets via trade if they know a player is going to get bought out? It's simply just a waiting game and they can sign Greg Monroe via free agency. It's not like teams are knocking on the door to sign this man right away. It's not like, oh man, like let's get LeBron James or Paul George or Russell Westbrook early. No man, this is Greg Monroe, which he's not a bad NBA player. I consider him a good role player on a championship team. I don't think he really has a stars mentality unless it's really the right system. But I do want to give you guys 5 NBA teams that I think would be a great fit for Greg Monroe, or a pretty good fit, you know, depending on his skill sets and everything and how coaches are going to use him. So Greg Monroe, first and foremost, guys, he's a good post player out there. I like to think of him as more of a mature version of Jahlil Okafor of the 76ers, who was also on the trade market. He is a guy that has good post skills. His rebounding, his defensive rebound has always been pretty solid. He averages around 10 rebounds a game throughout his career. I think the exact number is like 9.6. He's not going to give you any inside defense or anything like that. He's just not really a good defender by any stretch of the imagination. He's 6'11", so of course he has length. He also, according to 2K, he has a pretty decent mid-range shot with an 84 mid-range shot going by 2K stats right there, which equates to, you know, a respectable jump shot in the NBA. Now, I think Greg Monroe would need to run the 4 spot on a lot of teams to really utilize his max potential. But at the same time, I could see, you know, with a team with the good defensive players on the perimeter, could try running Greg Monroe at the center position. So here are the 5 teams, guys. Number 1 I have on my list here is the Chicago Bulls. Now, I think that Greg Monroe could run alongside Lauri Markkanen because Greg Monroe, of course, would operate in the paint, and, you know, Lauri would do his thing out on the three-point line. And like I was saying earlier, I know a lot of Bulls fans are a big fan of Jahlil Okafor, so it's just kind of the same case where it's just I don't want to say a better version, but a more advanced version of Jahlil Okafor at this point. I just feel like their skill sets are similar, so that would actually mesh well alongside Lauri. And at the same time, man, they don't got to give up a lot of assets. I mean, if they really wanted to trade a player away, it might be a good opportunity to trade away Mirotic to the Phoenix Suns or somebody like that, or really just do the waiting game and sign him via free agency. So another team I have on my list here is the Los Angeles Clippers. So he would be a 6th man behind Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. He really could play along either side of them. You know, there would be times where Blake Griffin's out there and Greg Monroe can run the center position. Of course, the defense would kind of suffer, but that's just how it is with Greg Monroe at times. Or there's times where DeAndre could be at the center position and Greg Monroe could kind of be, you know, playing that pick and pop, pick and roll mid-range game out there. So I feel like that would work out, you know, really nicely playing by either one of those guys out there. But really the good thing about him is not only would he be great for the bench unit, you know, he'd be a nice little spark off the bench, but if Blake Griffin were to go down with an injury, which he has in the past, it would be pretty good insurance to have a decent big man, you know, come on the team behind Blake Griffin if he was out for an extended period of time. And not only that, but the Clippers only have one natural center on their team right now, which is DeAndre Jordan, so even having him off the bench would be nice going forward. The next team I want to talk about is the Memphis Grizzlies. So Greg Monroe is actually very similar to Zach Randolph. They both mainly operate in the post and are bangers down low. They're not like amazing shooters, but they are respectable to the point where you need to keep them in check. So Zach Randolph has career averages of 16.7 points per game and 9.3 rebounds, where Monroe at the age of 27 has averages of 14 points per game and 8.7 rebounds. The rest of the stat lines are actually pretty similar too. So the mindset here for the Grizzlies are if they think that Randolph was a nice fit alongside Marc Gasol, then this is kind of like a rinse and repeat mentality with Greg Monroe, where it's just like he replaces Zach Randolph, who is now on the Kings, of course, but at the age of 27, it's a player that could play alongside, you know, Marc Gasol, maybe do some things on that team at the power forward position. For my next team here, I have the San Antonio Spurs. So Greg Popovich has a history of helping players reach their max potential. The Spurs don't really have much in terms of young big men on their team, as, you know, they got rid of Dwayne Dedmon, or he actually signed with the Atlanta Hawks last season, I believe. And really, man, all they have is LaMarcus Aldridge and Pau Gasol. So LaMarcus Aldridge is 32, Pau Gasol is 38, so time is definitely not on their side there. But Gasol, minus his shot blocking abilities, he's actually looked horrible on defense this season. He gets beat by his defenders all the time. And like, while Monroe isn't as good a passer as Gasol, this is a low-risk move which could result in Monroe posting similar stats to his best season in the NBA, which was about 16 points and 10 rebounds that season. I think it was his final season with the Detroit Pistons. So, you know, man, like, you kind of give up a little bit there with the shot blocking ability and maybe the passing ability. But I do think Greg Monroe is a little bit of a quicker player, just you know, for the fact that he's about 10 years younger than Pau Gasol. So that might work out right there. And there's even at times where maybe Greg Monroe could actually be the sixth man off that team anyway, or at least the first big man off the bench behind Pau Gasol if they really want to keep him on there, you know, and have him be as the starter. But I don't know, man. I think it would just be a good option alongside Kawhi Leonard when he gets back healthy and everything. And I really do think Greg Monroe would really fit nicely in a Greg Popovich system, and I think Greg Popovich could definitely get the most out of him. So for my final team that I personally have listed here is the OKC Thunder. So the OKC Thunder do not have much depth at the center position, with the only true center being Steven Adams, who of course is their starting center out there. So he would need to, so Monroe would of course need to settle for a six-man position on this team, but he would be a great spark off the bench and another tool for Russell Westbrook to utilize, you know, with his passing abilities and everything like that, being able to run that pick and roll with Greg Monroe and just have him post up and everything like that. So, you know, I see him as a good replacement for Taj Gibson, who went to the Minnesota Timberwolves, you know, this prior offseason right here. But in all honesty, guys, when it comes to Greg Monroe, he could up his stock so much if he could extend his range out to the three-point line. Like I was saying, he's got an okay mid-range shot. He cannot shoot the three bubble. We've seen a lot of players add that to their game because he's got good rebounding. He's got a nice post game, but his lack of defensive passing abilities makes him a hard sell to warrant a starting center position in the NBA. So I could really see him as a great backup center, how he is right now. That's kind of what he was in the Milwaukee Bucks. Or if he could extend his range, he could be a very tough to guard stretch four and a guy that could start on a lot of NBA teams. It's just in the NBA in this day and age, you just can't really have a center that does not really play great defense. Like I said, man, the rebounding and the post game is nice and everything, but it's definitely more of a perimeter and guard oriented league where the post game just is kind of a dying breed, and it kind of that whole like natural post game center position is kind of dying to the NBA in general, guys. So Greg Monroe, he is a good player. Just needs to find the right system out for him. I do think NBA teams should wait on Greg Monroe. They should not trade away any valuable asset, no draft picks, nothing like that. Because in the end of the day, the Phoenix Suns kind of screwed themselves over when they said they are going to buy out his contract no matter what.